And speak to Lara Elborno in Paris. She's an international lawyer and human rights activist. Lara, it's really good to have you on this news hour. We appreciate your time. These
Thank you for
killings
having me.
of these 7 aid workers in Gaza, if they were found to be deliberate, are they a violation of international humanitarian law? Is it a war crime?
Well, of course, it's a violation of international humanitarian law. International humanitarian law prohibits the targeting of civilians, and aid workers are also protected under international law. And yet, we know that time and again, Israel continues to target Palestinian civilians, aid workers, journalists. Their intelligence has even admitted as such. For many months now, we've known that this has been Israel's policy during this particular assault. According to a 972 magazine investigation called a mass assassination factory many months ago, Israeli intelligence were expressly admitted that in a given time period, half of Israel's airstrikes intentionally targeted civilian infrastructure in Gaza, including with civilians inside. Israel calls this power targets. And according to Israeli intelligence sources, the purpose of attacking power targets is, in their own words, to create a shock that, amongst other things, will reverberate powerfully and lead civilians to put pressure on Hamas. So we know that Israel targets civilians. We know that this is completely a violation of international law. But I think we need to move past the language of war crimes right now. We know that what we're dealing with in this present moment is genocide. This has been confirmed by hundreds of genocide scholars. It was confirmed very recently by the UN Special Rapporteur, Francesca Albanese, in her searing 25-page report, The Anatomy of a Genocide. So we really need to be careful and use the right language here when we're characterizing Israel's actions in Gaza.
So who can hold Israel accountable here then for this genocide, for the war crimes? Is this still something that we can only look at the International Court of Justice or the International Criminal Court to actually hold them to account, or they will be able to get away with what they're doing, not just now, but in years to come?
Well, look, there's already a case on genocide pending before the International Court of Justice, but we know that it'll take years to reach a judgment on the merits. Although I must remind that the International Court of Justice did order a number of provisional measures after finding Israel's assault to be plausibly genocidal in January, and then they renewed the provisional measures by ordering additional provisional measures again in March. And yet, every single day since those measures were ordered, Israel has continued to violate those provisional measures. And I understand that there's this desire to want to speak in terms of what is possible legally, what types of accountability and mechanisms are available to us when we're trying to envisage what accountability for Israel's genocide in Gaza might look like. But at this point, I think these conversations are no longer relevant. There's more than enough binding law that's already in place, which, if Israel were interested in complying with its international obligations, would require it to stop killing and starving Palestinians in Gaza. But it has showed that it is not interested at all in complying with its international obligations. In fact, it
Mm-hmm.
has told us that it will not comply with the ICJ order. It has told us that it does not consider that anything has changed since the rendering of the UN Security Council resolution. And so, therefore, at a time like this, we must insist on sanctions. There is, nothing short of widespread immediate sanctions is going to stop Israel.
Can you see international or countries actually impose these sanctions, especially after an incident like this, where it's sad to say, but these were nationals from Western countries, Australia, the US, the UK. It was a United States charity, and we find that when their deaths take place, more action seems to actually take place. So could this be a step towards possible sanctions?
No, I won't hold my breath for the US or other Western countries to take action because their own civilians, their own citizens were targeted in these attacks. Israel has killed citizens of other countries before with full impunity, including in this current genocidal assault. Many of the Palestinians who were killed may have also held passports from other countries. That has not prompted those countries to impose sanctions. So it really falls on the rest of the world to take their international obligations seriously, because we know that under the Genocide Convention, countries also have an obligation, in addition to not being complicit with genocide, to also prevent genocide. And every country right now that continues to funnel weapons to Israel, that continues to lay idly, and not act, is participating in this genocide as well by letting Israel get away with it.
Absolutely. Lara Elborno in Paris, good to get your take. Thank you so much.